Hi, everyone. Welcome to SIG Node weekly meeting on April 4th, 2023. We have 3 items on the agenda today. So first up is Paco with undeprecation of the kubelet provider ID flag. Paco, you're on the call.
Yes, this one is about undeprecate some flags of Kubernetes. Because there are some flags that is node specific, and the flag is used in some place like the E2E test, and maybe in other clusters. And so we want to undeprecate some Kubernetes flag. This is one example of provider ID. And in the discussion, Michael has mentioned that we have a long, it is a long story that we migrate those flags into the Kubernetes configuration. And some of them still is deprecated, but still there. And in our E2E test, there are several flags that is we will see the deprecated messages for a long time, and we are not sure if we have a plan to manage those flags, if they will be deprecated and migrate, or some of them may be still kept for a long period, maybe, as this is always used in somewhere. That is the case.
Yeah, Paco, thanks to look into this one. I don't know this particular flag. Looks like it's only using, at least I understand, the reason people Michael Tofen, I don't know, because this is so long, the project, right? So the to convert all those flag to the config file, so it's been like more than 5-6 years ago. So this particularly, if I remember correctly, all those cloud provider, they basically have got from the provider, the provider ID. But looks like it's several ad hoc usage still remain to using this one when it is looks like the kind cluster using this one. So I believe this is why Ben raised this concern initially. So the goal, what we want originally, just minimize, because look at Kubernetes. If you look at Kubernetes flag config, we have the couple hundred. It's really not manageable. So that's why the original goal, it is convert those flag to the config file and deprecate those unnecessary. So obviously this one initially, because it's all goes through the cloud provider. And so initially it's not that useful. So that's why by default, Michael treat that is the deprecate one. I do see there's cases, kind cluster is one. I don't see other cases there. But the goal it is, if we don't want to deprecate, can we just migrate that to the config file and try to minimize what we are using, right? So I saw the people just have a lot of list to say, oh, we have this many supposed to be deprecated, not deprecated. Can someone volunteer to driving to either migrate to the file or really spend time to deprecate those things?
Maybe another one is the feature gate. This one, I think we have the feature gates in Kubernetes configuration for a long time, but many E2E are still using the feature gate flag. I'm not sure if this is a preferred way, or we need to deprecate that, or remove the deprecation message, or just remove the flag. I'm not sure about this one. For others, I think, yeah.
This one definitely is not. Well, I do see the cases, so that's why I'm okay with you and deprecate. But else, but maybe we need to figure why other things needed this. I do see the kind why they needed. But if you really look at big and also Kubernetes, so many. So this is why we try the effort to make that manageable, right? So the goal originally is just minimize those flags. If we need to really keep that one, convert to the config file or config, yeah.
So maybe Don, in 128, we find someone if someone wants to make a pass and like shepherd this forward.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we merge this one to one block.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yep. All right. So I think we are good with that one. We can move on to the next issue on the agenda. Ian Coolidge, regarding specifying reserved CPUs and exclusive CPUs.
Yes, just to give everyone a little bit of a brief on this issue. I don't know if everyone has read the issue, but we found that when specifying -- reserve CPUs with static CPU manager policy, still some workloads are getting, like non-exclusive workloads are getting scheduled on the reserve CPUs. So I think the team acknowledged that this was a bug. But now going forward, I was thinking it might be really helpful to be able to specify CPUs in CPU groupings. CPUs is good to kind of shield Kubernetes workloads from using some CPUs, but then maybe you also subdivide the workload CPUs into ones that are intended to be used with like kernel level CPU isolation, you know, like kind of removed all interrupts, removed all kernel threads and all this stuff, versus kind of maybe normal category of workloads, so that you have sort of partitioned the CPU group into 3 different sets. I wanted to get feedback on that idea.
So I think Francesco is looking into the bug itself, and I think at least in Red Hat we have some use cases where we have some workloads where when we pin the CPUs, we don't want any interrupts and stuff. So we actually do some extra work in the container runtime to disable scheduler load balancing and so on. Is that the kind of tweaks you're thinking about? Or
yeah, maybe I'm not sure exactly what that refers to, but I think that's kind of roughly on par with what I'm describing.
Yeah, can I speak up here for a moment? And we're working on a KEP right now to handle different types of cores and be able to have a CPU control basically have its own resource plugin, right? Because currently with Kubernetes, you either take the CPU stuff or you have to do things like they're talking about with Red Hat, where you have to do stuff through the container runtime for CPU assignment. So number one, that is definitely a bug in Kubelet. But also, if you're talking about the interrupt stuff, some of the stuff we're working on actually allows you to do that, and you still get the scheduling niceties with DRA. So I can send you that KEP if you're interested, and we can talk later if you'd like.
Sure, that would be great.
yeah, Malo, could you drop a link into the agenda to that KEP?
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I intended to bring this topic up in the context of C Group's V1 deprecation anyway, so this is timely. Ian, I'll share what we are doing in a link in the notes as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can put in our current work there. It's ongoing work. We're fairly advanced, but any jumping in and making sure that it's what everyone needs, because it does handle the scheduling problem, right? So just because you have the ability with the kernel interrupts, doing stuff in runtime may not be exactly what we need.
Cool. Looking forward to reading it. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Ian. So the last topic on the agenda is user namespaces. Rodrigo. I bet I saw Rodrigo. Maybe he's just trying to reconnect. Oh, Rodrigo, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you and see you
okay.
now. Okay. Go for it.
Okay, yeah. And you still hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So with the last changes we merged with in Kubernetes 127 for the user namespaces cap. Currently, the cap scope is only for stateless pods, but we don't need to do any changes any other changes in Kubernetes or the runtimes to support the stateful pods. So what we want to do is just to add into the scope of the cap stateful pods too. Like, well, the only code change that we need to do is to change the validation. Right now we're validating that no volumes are inside the pod when the pod is accepted. If we just remove that, everything works. So I wanted to propose to just deprecate the feature gate that we have today, that is user namespaces stateless pod support, and just remove the stateless pod part and add another new feature gate that is user namespaces support, and that activates support for stateful and stateless pods. Wanted to know what are your thoughts on doing this? It's still on alpha, and we propose to keep it still on alpha.
Do you see adding support for volume somehow interfering with the stateless, or it shouldn't have any effect at all, right? The stateless should work similar to how it works right now.
Yes, because we don't need any code changes. Basically, what we're doing is using ID map mounts for the bind mounts. So stateless pods should work exactly the same as in 127. And the only thing that will change for 128, if we want this, is the feature gate name. And we'll accept more pods, more workloads.
I think the reason we went down the path of splitting is because we knew for sure that, okay, stateless, we are good. We know the design. There are a bunch of use cases and it can independently move faster towards graduation. So if we go down this path, will it slow us down? Are there any security issues or anything that we have to worry about for more releases that will potentially delay stateless as well?
I don't think so, because initially we had like several phases in the cap. And what we wanted to do is to support stateless cap without any kernel support. And that's why we wanted to move it at a different speed also. But when we merge in 125, we have to do several hacks that are limitations, and basically SIG storage had concerns if we change the owner of the secrets files and config maps and when mounted in volumes. So basically that put like a wall into that proposal. So what we did in 127 is just basically merging all with ID map mounts. So we don't need to do any of the things that were worrying SIG storage. We don't need to change the ownership, but we rely on the kernel to do the ID translation now. I mean, before we were doing it for the simple volumes ourselves, the kubelet was creating with a proper host ID, host UID, host GID, and whatever. Right now, we just undo that part and we let the kernel do the ID translation. So yeah, I don't think there's any, like what we thought about, volumes are more complicated and will need kernel support, and so less users, like user will need to upgrade the kernel and this and that. Well, we already have that for stateless pods too, because we couldn't move with our original idea.
Sounds okay to me, but I would suggest like you open a cap here, because I think there were other reviewers as well, like Tim Hawkins, and get their thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, maybe there was something that we already identified in this meeting, or.
So Rodrigo, there's one more item that we need to address that we haven't talked about before, and that is the pod security policies. Like, we need to figure out where the user namespaces fit there. Right now, we have absolutely no intersection there. We may need to relax it, right? In some cases. So maybe we should start addressing that as well a little bit.
Yes, that wasn't my to-do. I had it for the beta migration, like as a blocker to beta migration. But yeah, we can start the conversation earlier if you want to. I think that it will be tricky probably because at least until the field is GA, we cannot, like the restricted policy doesn't let you use host namespaces except for the user namespace because that was always using the. But yeah, we'll probably need to
Yeah,
have
we
a
can start a
meeting with other
conversation,
SIGs
right?
and see what
see.
what
Yeah.
can we do and
Yeah.
yeah, when is the right timing? It's when it's beta, when it's GA, when whatever. Which do you know which SIG I should join to discuss this?
Probably SIG auth, and I'll also be interested in joining, so we can plan to go there.
Okay, we can plan to to go together.
Yeah.
And are you going to KubeCon EU?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we won't talk about that there. Okay.
Right.
Well, I think
Rodrigo,
that is. Oh, hello.
Hey, I had a quick question. Sorry about the
Yes.
the stateless change. I was wondering. So currently we rely on a newer kernel to be able to rely on the ID mount being handled by it. If we change the scope of the KEP to include stateless pods, would that mean the user namespaces would it would require a new kernel? Whereas like if we keep it the separation between stateless and stateful, like we could use an older kernel for
No.
you know, the stateless.
No. So currently the KEP only supports stateless KEPs, stateless pods, and we already did the change in 127 to rely on ID mount. So we require a new kernel for stateless pods because we couldn't move forward with our ideas to, in those specific cases, don't need the kernel features due to the SIG storage concern.
Okay, so regardless if we make this change, we're already relying on the new kernel anyway.
Yeah, this
Okay,
change is
cool.
only for stateful. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any more thoughts? All right. Thanks for presenting, Rodrigo.
No, thank you for your time.
So with that, we are at the end of the agenda. Do folks have any other topics they wanted to raise today? All right. We'll give everyone back 45 minutes. Thanks for joining today. See you all next week. Bye now.